Hi, hello, welcome to my channel where I usually review AEW Dynamite as soon as they are out of the presses. So with that being said, let's jump into the review for this week's Dynamite. This week's Dynamite started with FTR against Best Friends, which was a great way to start the Dynamite. The match was great because all of the teams involved are great. So with that being said, I wasn't expecting a lot. Probably I just called the finish of the match because I don't see a real reason why FTR should be losing. We have a bit more insight on what's probably going to happen later this episode. I enjoyed it, and other than that, I give it a thumbs up. Something that I enjoyed is that Miro interrupted the match. Keep Sabian and Miro had a match against, I don't want to say jobbers, but probably jobbers. I know Sean Maluta because he was part of the WWE Cruiserweight title. But other than that, the match was great. Miro just squashed both of them, which I find the correct approach and the correct thing to do. For the time being, I give it a thumbs up, but it can probably change. So I'll give it at least a week, to see if this can continue to be exciting, at least to me. Next up, we got the segment of MJF actually asking to be inside the inner circle, which this sounds great to me. Um, they went over the top, but it's not out of character for either Jericho or MJF, so I allow it. Not that much. I allow it. The segment was great. They even the loose thread against the loose thread of Sammy Guevara receiving a larger jacket that was paid off, and in all earnesty it's working great for me. Santana and Ortiz tried to negate the possibility of MJF joining the inner circle, but Chris Jericho just went like, you know what, this decision, we'll take it next week when MJF and Chris Jericho have a steakhouse. So the date is set, and they can milk this. I don't have any problem with it. So for the time being, I give it a thumbs up. Next up, we got a segment with Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone, which is kind of funny. Every time Britt Baker is on the screen, I find it positive. So I laugh out loud, and I am, of course, looking forward to this because I feel that the success for AEW Dynamite women's division rests on Hikaru Shida and also what Britt Baker can bring to the table. So I'm looking forward to that. The segment was fantastic. I find it funny, so that's a thumbs up for me. Next up, we got the TNT title defense against Cody Rhodes and Orange Cassidy, which I wasn't aware. I mean, they've been portraying Orange Cassidy very correctly, but for this one, it felt like he needed a ripcord to start, which I find funny. Eventually, he got into the match, and he out wrestled Cody Rhodes, which I wasn't expecting, but nevertheless, I find it positive. Probably the finish is a bit controversial. I don't think so, because they haven't been using the tie of a match that commonly, so it came out of the blue. But it was well timed, so the 3 seconds for Orange Cassidy to win, the time elapsed at the last possible second. So that's great. That's great choreography, and it came across that way. So I find it pretty positive. I feel that Orange Cassidy is probably going to be TNT champion at some point. This not this soon, or not at this time. He actually has a rematch for this TNT championship in 2 weeks. So that's fine. Uh, Obviously, he's probably not going to win because there's a stopgap with Darby Allin that was looking from the rafters. But other than that, the match was great. It was well timed, the finish, and the execution was great. So I feel like there's probably not much that I can add to this particular match. It was great. It gets a thumbs up from me. Next up, we got Hikaru Shida against Big Swole. And boy, this was not her night. There were a couple of botches. I'm not trying to defend both of them, but probably the humidity in Daly's place had something to do, but that sounds like an excuse, and I am not here to give excuses. The match wasn't that good. There were a couple of botches, big botches. Hikaru couldn't perform a move that she has previously nailed it. Probably, once again, the humidity had something to do with that. But at the end of the day, the result, I feel it's the correct one. I don't feel that it's Hikaru's time yet. Probably after we build a credible challenger. Until then, I'm fine with Hikaru Shida being the champion of AEW. So that's my estimation. But other than that, it's fantastic. And the main event of the night was Jon Moxley against Lance Archer, which on paper this was going to be a great match, no matter when it took place. Honestly, I felt a bit. I mean, they tried to replicate their match in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't feel that it got up there, but it was a miniature version of the New Japan Pro Wrestling match they had. So it was great, and probably the change that I enjoyed a lot. The Lucha Brothers and Eddie Kingston were on the commentary table giving their input and feedback. So that was cool. Eventually, the finish again was a bit complicated because in theory it was Lance Archer practically had it won until until the last second when Jon Moxley changed the position and actually pinned Lance Archer. So then again, probably not a good night for wrestling in general in AEW. But that's okay. I mean, there are some days, there are some good days, there are some bad days. This wasn't a bad day, but it was not top tier day. So I took it as it came. So for the time being, it does not change my reading of the situation. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it can get better. So that's probably what I continue to tune in. So that would be the review for AEW Dynamite. Leave a like and comment. I'll link my social media accounts if you have any other comments or suggestions. But that will be all for my part. Have a great day and continue to have a great day.